Would you believe me if I told you that you can get a ripped body and a six-pack by just watching a couple of online videos? No, you would probably say that I'm insane and that makes no sense. Then why do so many people assume that they're just not good at coding after watching 2 videos and half of the first section of some online course? This is the biggest misconception that I see most aspiring developers have. You hear that software is a great career, most of the time you can work from home and it pays really, really well. You get excited, watch a few online videos, realize that you don't get it at first and you're not very good at it, and then you quit. Well, no shit. In the same manner that the only way to get abs is to constantly work out and eat healthier, the only way to get good at coding is to practice, practice, and practice. Although it might sound counterintuitive, you have to put in the work to be able to get good at it. At first, most of your code is gonna suck. It won't be good at all, trust me. But this is not the end of the journey. You have to get comfortable with not being good at something at the beginning and to constantly be learning. Learning how to code requires patience, dedication, and hard work. You have to take the time to learn. And don't get me wrong, I'm a sole believer that anyone can learn how to code and become a great developer, even if you don't have a formal education in computer science or computer engineering, but you have to dedicate some time to learn. Let me tell you a story. When I was doing my first internship, I had this manager. Cool guy, super smart, very knowledgeable on all things coding. He was currently a software engineering manager making over $300,000 a year and living the life. One time while talking to him, I started asking some questions about his life and how he learned how to code and actually become a manager. And what he told me next still baffles me and resonates with me until this day. My manager had gone to school for an English career. He has a degree in English literature. Yes, I know, it's like, what? I asked, then how do you get this job? My manager then told me that he was working as a teacher for some time and things weren't going very well. He really loved what he was doing because he really enjoys teaching, but the pay and the compensation was just not enough. With 2 kids to support, he needed something a bit more lucrative that will allow him to support his kids and at the same time save some money for retirement or just living. So what did he do? He told me that for the longest time he had been hearing about programming and how you could build pretty much any app and build the craziest things possible by just writing a few lines of code. So he signed up for some online course and spent all of his nights and weekend going through the course, learning and absorbing as much information as he could. About 6 or 8 months later, he applied for an entry-level position at a software company and he actually got the job. From there, he started climbing the ranks and now he's a whole-ass manager making insane amounts of money and he doesn't even have a computer science degree. So my point is that you too can become a great developer even if you don't have a formal education, if you haven't gone to school for it, even if you've never even seen coding. You can become this developer, make 6 figures and more, and a lot of the times you can even work from the comfort of your own home. But you have to put in the work. Watching one video won't get you there. Doing a follow-along course won't get you there. The only thing that will get you there is to practice, 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 and constantly put in the work to understand the concepts and just kind of get proficient at it. Okay, so how do you actually do this? Let me break it down for you. First, get in the mindset that you will suck. There's no doubt about it. The concepts will be weird and you won't just get it right away. But this is fine. It will take some time. It's just as going to the gym. You can't expect to just go once and just be all ripped. It's gonna take some time. So just get in the mindset of, I don't know this, but make sure that you always add yet at the end of your sentences. I don't know this yet. I'm not good at this yet. So make sure that you understand that if you have patience, it'll become a lot easier the more that you do it. Second, you have to be interested in coding at least a little bit. Yes, software is typically a very lucrative career, but if you're just doing this for the money, it's not gonna go very well. Trust me, there's not enough money in the world that will make you sit down there for hours typing in code if you don't enjoy it. You're gonna be, for lack of better words, very, very miserable. How can you actually spend some time learning these concepts if you hate it? If every time you wake up, you're like, I really do not want to do this. So make sure that you at least have a little bit of an interest in programming and you're willing to actually put in the work and learn, because otherwise it's not gonna be a very pleasant experience. I have personally seen a lot of people switch from software engineering to like project managing or business analyst just because they simply didn't really enjoy it. And I want to make sure that you understand that although anyone can learn how to code, this career might not be for everyone. As being a banker, it's not for me, but anyone can do it. You just have to at least be a little bit interested in it, because if you really, really hate it, it will be very, very hard to stick to it, to dedicate the time and learn the concepts that you need to learn. You also gotta pick one one single language. You will hear a lot of people on the internet talk about what the best language is and how all other languages suck, but in all honesty, the language is the thing that matters the least. As you become a more experienced developer, you'll realize that the language is just a tool, and the syntax and how to program in that specific language are things that you can easily just Google and understand, like how do I write a for loop in Python? But that's not the difficult part. The difficult part is even knowing that you needed to use a for loop, or what a for loop even is. The concepts are what really matter here. So just pick a language, any, and stick to it at least at the beginning. Even though the language doesn't really matter as you start progressing, it does make it a bit easier to learn when you're just getting started, because you don't have to waste time on trying to understand what the differences are between this language and that language. You just pick one and stick to it. And you'll realize that all of the concepts are the same, like for loops, while loops, how you use it, how do you program, how to actually structure classes, how to do anything in programming. It's more or less the same. It's just different syntax things that change here and there. But don't try to be switching from one language to the other when you're learning, because that's just gonna confuse you, make it a whole lot harder on yourself just to get started. Just pick one, stick to it, learn the basics from it, learn how to get, how to get going, how to program, how to do things with it, and then later on you can start exploring more as you become more experienced. But I highly recommend that at the beginning you just stick to one, learn how it works, and that'll be a whole lot more beneficial for your journey as a developer. If you want a language that's quote unquote a bit easier, just choose Python. It is very powerful. The syntax resembles a lot like just plain English, and there's a huge community out there that can provide you with support and tutorials and so on for you to learn. And if you don't like Python, then just choose JavaScript, Java, C#, Go, C, Dart, heck, even PHP. It doesn't really matter. Just pick one and stick to it until you feel at least good enough with all of the concepts, and then you can start venturing out into other topics and other languages. Now that you've chosen a language, you have to practice. If you have zero experience with programming, I recommend that you take an online free course, which is going to teach you the basics of how to program and how that language in particularly works. Some great resources that I've encountered in the wild are Codecademy, not Code Academy, Codecademy, Free Codecamp, and Codedex.io. All these sites have free courses that you can take to learn how to program and will guide you through the basics of how everything works. They also have like interactive interfaces that show up what you are actually making as you're typing it, so you get that feedback loop and you understand what and how things are changing as you're actually doing them. So I think this is a very good spot to start. And they are free, so there's very little risk for you. If you take it, you realize that you don't like coding, or the system or the site just didn't work for you, then you jump to another site and try to learn somewhere else. Once you understand the basics, you have to start building projects. This doesn't have to be a very complicated project. Yes, a lot of us would like to build the next Instagram or the next YouTube. These projects might get a bit too overwhelming to get started with, and if you don't have the experience, it's very hard that you'll actually get something accomplished, and you'll actually be discouraged and want to give up because you couldn't really finish what you were trying to do. And also keep in mind that both Instagram and YouTube have teams with thousands of people who are supporting this project and actually building it. So yeah, it's very unlikely that by yourself getting started, you're gonna be able to build something like this. Instead, start with the most basic app that you can think of. This can be a tic-tac-toe game, a note-taking app, or a simple calculator that just adds and subtracts numbers. It doesn't really matter what the project is as long as you consider it's easy enough and that you can actually start implementing it as soon as possible. One of the best ways to learn is by doing hands-on work. And although the courses that you took will teach you the basics, creating projects on your own will give you a little bit more insight into how software works and how all the parts connect together to build software that matters, rather than just some random bits of separate code here and there that don't really amount to anything. The first project will teach you how to build and will probably not be that good. The second project will teach you how to improve on your first attempt, and every other project after that will just make you a great, very excellent developer. As soon as you have a decent understanding of programming, start learning data structures and algorithms. These data structures and algorithms, or DSA for short, will teach you a lot and give you great insight into how different systems work, as well as sharpen your skills and teach you different ways to solve a problem more efficiently. These include things like knowing what a tree is in programming, not landscaping, how a graph works, what is a stack or a queue, and how to implement different sorting algorithms. There's a whole lot more that goes into it, but these concepts in themselves will teach you a lot on just how software is structured and the different things that you can use to build your own projects and also solve problems later on. Lastly, you have to practice LeetCode. If you're not familiar with LeetCode, this is a platform that has thousands of coding problems that you can take that will help you improve your coding skills and are actually the same type of questions that you will get while you're interviewing. solving. So these problems are typically the same that companies like Google, Facebook, Apple, and so on ask during the interviews. So knowing how to solve them and being a little bit familiar with how it works will help you a lot with passing your interviews. These problems can be solved by employing a mix of all of the data structures and algorithms and your coding skills that you have already developed by the time that you are at this step. Although these problems can sometimes be quite hard and a lot of developers hate them, they do teach you a lot of great concepts that I believe are essential for any programmer. They teach you how to think critically and how to solve problems in novel ways, maybe things that you have never seen in the past. I always try to think that all roads lead to Rome, but some of them might go all the way around the world and be super long, and some might be some more direct. So there are different ways to solve specific problems, and by doing a lot of LeetCode problems and understanding how to actually solve them will expand your skill set and just your understanding of the different data structures, so that when you actually encounter a problem during your daily life, at work, maybe in your own projects, then you know what things exist and more or less how they work, so that you can actually employ them there. If you're not familiar with these concepts, then it's going to be very hard for you to actually think of using these concepts when you're building something, because, well, you don't know they exist, right? How are you going to be able to use something if you don't know it even exists? So by knowing how to actually solve these problems, you are expanding your knowledge, you're expanding your skills, and you're actually getting ready for interviewing and acing any technical interview. And to be honest, if you don't practice LeetCode, your chances of getting a job as a software engineer are nearly zero. I think every single company does ask LeetCode questions or similar questions that maybe they came up with, but they're all in similar manner. And if you don't know how to even approach it, how to understand the concepts, how to even understand what the question is asking, then very, very unlikely that you're actually going to land that job. To recap, programming is just like going to the gym. Unless you are constantly going to work out and increasing the weights every so often, it's very unlikely that you'll actually get that ripped body that you want to have. So make sure that you take enough time to learn how to code through different problems, projects, and communities that will support you on your journey. All this education will only help you, and it's something that nobody can take from you. Once you understand all these concepts, once you know how to actually program, nobody can take that away from you, and you can apply it whether at a specific company or for your own projects as a freelancer, or maybe building something for yourself. And heck, maybe you do build the next Instagram that we will see in the world. Plus, all the projects that you build while learning, you can use as your own portfolio, and they look very, very good in your resume, so they actually help you in getting that job. It's very, very hard when you have a resume that you only worked at an ice cream shop back in 2017, but if you do have these projects, even if you haven't gone to school for a formal education per se, you will still have a lot of experience to show for and real projects that people can see and understand kind of your programming skills. Don't get discouraged, keep growing, keep learning, and I'll promise you that in a couple months, you'll be a whole developer, and then you'll look back and realize that you didn't even know when it happened. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll see you on the next one.